Today we're going to make some Asian vegetables and dirty rice, which is exactly the same as my recipe for spicy vegetables and dirty rice, simply substituting soy sauce for hot sauce. But I'm getting ahead of myself. So we're going to start with, you want to get fresh vegetables. Fresh is always better. So you can see I have laying here on the towel some celery, red onion, a couple of green bell peppers. Cheating on the carrots with some baby carrots because they're already peeled and easier to dice up. Same with the mushrooms. They're already packaged. You just want to clean those up. And then I have some broccoli and a couple of zucchini. You can really use pretty much whatever you want. Again, I would recommend fresh. It's good with some sugar snap peas. There's lots of other things I've used. Green onion in it. It's whatever your personal preference is. And then over here we have a little chicken stock that we're going to use. This is light and fat-free with 50% less sodium, trying to make something fairly healthy. That's the reason there. And then some brown rice. This is boiled and bagged rice, but you can do it however you want. You can also use white rice. Again, just trying to keep it a little bit healthier. Now, the key to cooking anything is to relax and have fun with it. Doesn't matter if you screw it up. Even if you're cooking it for somebody else, screw them. Just enjoy it. As for the relaxation, I find the best way to relax before cooking is to have a drink. So that's step one. Before we cut up any vegetables, before we make any rice, before we do anything else, we're going to have a rum and Coke, because that will get us in the mood for cooking, or at least not giving a shit if it doesn't work out. So you make your drink. Whatever your drink may be, doesn't matter. Certainly doesn't have to be this. If you're a wine drinker, I think it sucks, but you enjoy it. You want to have a beer, you want to do some vodka, whatever your thing is, even if it's shitty tequila, you enjoy it. Have your drink and then we'll do some cooking. Salud. Already ready to cook. Okay, going to start by chopping up some onion. Again, much like the vegetables you choose to use, it's personal preference. A lot of people are going to chop an onion. They're going to kind of slice in half, do cuts across, cut down, do very fine onion. A lot of people don't really like onion. I love onions, so I tend to chop them in larger pieces so that when I'm eating, you can actually crunch into something. And again, you can make this as a soup. I'm making it more firm, if you will, with the rice so that it holds up a little bit better. So again, I want some texture in there, but however you chop it, it's how you prefer. Just grab the large bowl just as I'm chopping up the vegetables to throw them in. Gonna hit everything in the pan at the same time. Sometimes people put the onion in first because they want to get them really soft and caramelized. I like to do it all together. I'm going to do it on a fairly high heat so that most of the vegetables are going to stay pretty crisp. So when I'm doing this, because I like it, as I said, a little bit larger chunks, I just split this in thirds, and then I'm going to angle cut it across so that I have some larger pieces to deal with. You can see, I don't know, what's that, quarter, half-inch thick. These will break apart while you're cooking, and then when you get down here, you're just going to do some rough chopping on the last couple pieces. Okay, so we'll finish up the onion and we'll move on to the next veggie. Next, we're going to do some celery. With the celery, you're going to want to try to get the strings out as best you can. I'm not a real stickler for it. Some people are. If I get most of it, I'm more than happy. And then just going to chop these in little pieces. Celery is used in lots of soups and other things. Good texture when you're putting it together. I happen to like celery. A lot of people don't. Often when you're cooking with it, you don't really taste the celery, and it does just give it texture. Texture is pretty important in what you're cooking. So I'm not going to bore you with a celery history lesson, but keep in mind you want to enjoy your drink while you're doing this because it makes it all the more fun. And let's pretend that's the same drink we started with. So we're going to chop up the celery and then move on to our next vegetable. All right, next we're just going to chop up some baby carrots. Bag's open, got some here. Baby carrots, you can use any carrots. I just find they're easy. They're already peeled and cleaned up. And just do little circular slices. And that's it. There's no need to bore you with that. I'm going to add the carrots and then we'll move on. One quick note though, if you're cutting veggies, and you'll notice I don't chop like the people on TV because I'm not the people on TV. But if you're going to chop your veggies and then you want to scoop them up, one quick little safety point is you make sure when you pick them up, if you're going to scoop with the knife, the blade is not facing your hand. Good way to cut your hand with damage. You want to use the back of the knife, pick up the veggies and scoop. All right, carrots are boring as shit, so we'll move on in just a second. We're going to add some broccoli. Certainly nothing keeping you from using the stalk of the broccoli, but I like the florets or the tree part of the broccoli. So easiest way, I'm just going to break it off. I'm going to cut and discard the stalk, and then honestly just using my hands, I'm going to break the little florets or tree pieces off and add them to my veggie bowl. So that's it for the broccoli, and next we're going to do up some zucchini. Okay, I mentioned when we were doing the onions to start with, the cutting is your personal preference. Zucchini, quick note on zucchini, you'll see stories in the news with people who grow these, 4-foot long zucchinis, and they win prizes with them, whatever. Those zucchinis suck. When it comes to zucchini, this is actually too large, depending on what you're using it for. Anyway, the smaller the zucchini, the sweeter. The bigger a zucchini gets, it's going to get tougher, it's going to get stringier, and it's actually going to be more bitter. So ideally, I would like a smaller zucchini, but this is what the local produce stand had on sale, and sales are good, so this will do. Cut off the little gourd top of the zucchini, cut the bottom seed of the zucchini, and again, as I was saying with the onion, zucchini's personal preference. A lot of people are going to cut it, get it in rings. A lot of people split it, put in long strips. For this dish, I typically prefer the rings, but I'm going to cut the zucchini in half, and then we're going to quarter it, so that, move this just for now, so that we're going to end up with quarter long, if I could hold it, quarter long. Okay, maybe let's have another drink and move on. Really, it's still the first one. Quarter long strips, and then all I'm going to do is cut that into whatever that is, quarter inch, probably half-inch pieces, and cut up the zucchini like that. I'm going to throw about 2 of these larger zucchinis into this. If they were smaller, better. I may use 3 or 4. I like zucchini. I like the flavor. It's my favorite vegetable. So again, it's personal preference. You don't have to put zucchini in, but this is what we're going to do with zucchini. And then lastly, we're going to do the peppers and mushrooms, and then we'll actually start cooking and doing something and stop boring the living shit out of you. But for now, I'm going to cut up some more zucchini. Okay, the last 2 items before we actually start cooking something. Going to cut up a couple bell peppers. As opposed to the zucchini, I like a larger bell pepper, simply because it's easier to work with. And then we're going to clean up the mushrooms and throw the mushrooms into the mix. But with the bell pepper, again, your cutting style is a personal preference. Some people like, cubes, some people like strips, whatever. I just like to split the pepper in half, so I can break it open, take out any seeds, the top little stem piece, and then what I do is I cut into strips. I'm not going to do the whole thing and bore the living shit out of you more than I already am. And then I'm just cutting chunks. So sort of a rough cut, and going to chop up the rest of this pepper, clean up the mushrooms, throw them in, maybe drink a little bit more, and then we'll move on. We're going to add some olive oil and some spices, and then start cooking up the rice and these veggies. Most important part, remember, if you're not having fun, take out, because there's no point to it. And if you're going to do it, have fun, have a drink, and always use fresh ingredients. Okay, we'll be cooking in a second. Okay, we got our rice going on the back burner. We've got a dog shaking in the background, but don't worry, hands were washed. We work clean here. I'm going to turn on the burner. about a medium-high heat. Now, if you want to sprinkle some olive oil right into the pan, throw the veggies in, that's fine. I like to get the pan hot before I start working with it. So I'm going to let the pan heat up, and as opposed to putting the olive oil right in the pan, I'm going to do things just a little bit differently. So as I said, I like to do things just a little bit differently. This is the bowl that I was throwing everything into earlier, and you may or may not be able to see on there, there's some fresh ground pepper. Did it beforehand only because I needed two hands, and right now one of them's holding the camera. As I said, I'm going to make this Asian simply because there's going to be soy sauce in it as opposed to hot sauce. You can make this the exact same way. You'll see at the end we'll throw in some soy sauce. You can do hot sauce or teriyaki, whatever you might prefer for flavor. I like things spicy, so even though I'm doing this Asian, I'm going to throw in a little Mrs. Dash extra spicy. Again, trying to keep it a little bit healthy. Salt is great, especially like a sea salt for breaking down the onions and veggies as you cook them, but trying to keep the sodium a little lower here. So just going to sprinkle some of this in here for flavor. We'll give it a little bit of spice. It says extra spicy. Trust me, it's not that spicy, even if you're not a spice person. And then we're going to take some extra virgin olive oil. And instead of putting it in the pan, we're going to just pour right onto these veggies. And then what we're going to do is mix this up in it. I'm going to turn the camera off for this because I'll need two hands. But we're going to mix the veggies up in the olive oil. And in just a second, we're going to dump them into a preheated pan. Okay, so here our veggies are. Mix them up with the oil and the spices, which in this case is just the Mrs. Dash we talked about, which is sodium-free spice, and some olive oil. And we're going to dump these into the pan now. And hopefully the pan's heated up. We'll get a little bit of a sizzle, but not a singe, because you don't want the pan so hot that it instantly burns the veggies. Okay, so hopefully our pan's got a little heat to it, and we're just going to slowly, nice little sizzle. That's perfect. We're going to work these veggies in. Obviously, you want to make sure you have the appropriate size pan. Now, this is a lot of veggies. This pan looks very full, and we're still going to add rice and chicken stock, but the veggies will cook down, and this is actually kind of perfect, even though it looks very full. Now, the key here, you're going to want to keep, you don't have to constantly stir it, but you're going to want to keep the veggies moving. What you don't want is vegetables burning on the bottom while the top remains raw. This is going to cook, depending on your stove, you're probably going to want to go anywhere 8 to 15 minutes. You'll know when you stop seeing mushrooms this size that are actually starting to cook down, when your onions are starting to cook down. You want to saute the vegetables, you want to soften them, you don't want to overcook them and make them mushy. So it doesn't need a lot of attention. This isn't a dish you have to stand over the stove constantly and sweat and feel the heat, but you do want to keep an eye on the veggies, and you do want to move them around every couple of minutes. Hopefully you can hear that sizzle. These vegetables have been cooking for just 4 or 5 minutes. You can already see how they're reducing. The onions are cooking down, the mushrooms are cooking down. This is going to need a few more minutes before we move on to the next step. But again, just every couple of minutes you're going to want to give these a stir, simply because you want them to cook somewhat evenly. If your vegetables are off a little bit, where some are a little bit softer, some are a little firmer, that's fine. That actually, it's a nice variation in the texture for the person eating it, but you definitely don't want to overcook stuff on the bottom and have raw stuff on top. So just a simple mix, fold, stir, whatever like that, every few minutes is really all you need to do. It's a very simple dish. Again, can't stress this part enough. You want to have fun while you're cooking. If you're cooking for yourself or you're cooking for 100 people, if it's not fun, it becomes a job, and most of us aren't doing this for a living. So have fun with it, enjoy it. So that's the end of the first drink, and we'll keep cooking in a second. So these veggies have been cooking for about 10 minutes, just about perfect. They're still going to be firm, they're not going to be too mushy. At this point, we're going to pour in our chicken stock. The amount you use is up to you. Again, you can make this as a soup. I like it to be a little firmer. So I'm putting in just about the whole container of, this is a quart, so maybe 2/3 of that, maybe about 20 ounces of the chicken stock. I'm going to leave this on the heat till the chicken stock comes to a low boil. Then I'm going to add the rice. We're going to cover it, let it firm up, add the soy sauce for flavoring, and we'll go from there. As you can hopefully see, we have a light boil here with our chicken stock added to the vegetables. We're going to stir in some previously made brown rice. Again, we went brown rice as opposed to white, just trying to keep it a little bit healthier. And as I said, everything has been low sodium to this point for the same reason. Now, it's at this point you can make a decision. You can add whatever flavoring or sauce, if you will, into this mix. You'll notice I'm just folding the rice into the vegetables and the broth. Don't need any great stir here. You just want to be able to sort of bring it all together. And as I said, you can make this a spicy dish by throwing hot sauce in. You can throw pretty much any other flavor in you want. Today we're going to throw some soy sauce in, which is going to defeat all of the low sodium stuff we were doing, because soy sauce is very high in sodium, but gives it a really great flavor. So there's a bit of a trade-off there. You can see we're just pouring some of this in. You can see the chicken stock turning brown. You're going to do this to your personal preference, whatever the flavor is, but get the soy sauce mixed in. Again, we're just going to fold everything up here. The rice is already cooked, so it's actually going to puff a little bit here as we let it settle into the chicken stock. And you see we're just trying to get everything mixed up real nice. Kind of blend it off. And then we're going to put a lid on this and just let it sit for 5 or 10 minutes to let the rice cook in. I'm going to turn the heat off of it and let everything settle. Okay, our rice has been resting for about 5 minutes. And you can see a lot of the chicken stock has been absorbed. Still a little bit wet. The longer it sits with the lid on, the more it will absorb. It'll get very solid. Again, you can make this a soup very easily by using more chicken stock. You can use pasta as opposed to the rice. It's an easy and flexible dish. But that's basically it. This version of Asian vegetables and dirty rice. Thanks for watching.